The Okpe Kingdom is made up of two LGA. Okpe LGA with the Secretary in Okpe, and Saple LGA. Because of the vastness of the kingdom is divided into 13 districts. And I appoint the district heads. They oversee the district. Though they call the district head, the traditional way of calling them is the eyes of the king in their district. They are my eyes in the district. They report to me what is happening in their district. In that way, I'm able to keep abreast of what is happening in the district, the whole kingdom. When you were speaking, there was an issue which you raised, which I'm not too sure whether we covered that area during the work. Issue of abandoned projects, issue of lack of electricity while in this kingdom, especially in Saple, we have two generating plants, generating to the national grid, so that everything will be properly documented, so that even at the state level, the NDDC level, the federal level, they will know areas that are lacking. For a good example, the Saple Technical College, for instance, was equal to, at the time the Saple Technical College was established, that is the same time Yaba College was established. That is the time that the similar one was in Ibadan. The Kaduna Polytechnic now was a technical college. And even the one in Enugu, all of them have grown to be universities and big polytechnics. Whereas the second technical college is still exists. That shows that our people are being oppressed. They don't want to give us anything. In the whole of this kingdom, there is no tertiary institution. This village, or this town, Okpe, there was a time when we had this, during the colonial period, where they thought Warri division, Warri province, the Warri province, made up of Urhobo division and Warri division. Okpe was the headquarters of Urhobo division, made up of all the present local government like Etiop East, Etiop West, Urie, Udu, Ugele North, Ugele South, and even part of Isoko. Also, they were under Okpe here. And even when they was changed to Western Urhobo, Okpe also became the capital of Western Urhobo division, while Ugele now became the capital of Central Urhobo, Eastern Urhobo, later Central Urhobo, when Isoko led. And all these places, development has come into these places, and yet none is coming to my place. So because successive government are not thought wise, maybe because they feel we don't have people in government, so they neglect us. But governance should not be bad. It's not based on who you have. It should be based on equity, what is good for the people. Because not that my people are always in opposition, but somehow what is due to us cannot be given to us. And my people are lamenting. We do hope that all this information, you put them on your website, maybe somebody will say one day let us come and do something for these people. Once again, I want to welcome you here for this project, because before we accepted to be part of it, we have to look at it of what benefit is it to us. There was a lot of debate. Well, it's okay. Let us just put it there so that you don't know, so that we are not there. If we are a kingdom in the Niger Delta, our name will be there. So that is why we are going to this. So what we are going to do, based on what you wanted, we try to break the presentation in that order. I would now like to call Professor Damoyibo to come and do the presentation.
Professor Vaborene Damoyibo of the Delta State University. About the history and the migration of the Okpe people, the Egyptian heir apparent in the 7th century BC is the progenitor of the Okpe people. We are aware that the Okpe people and language existed even before the birth of Christ, among other languages and peoples of the world. And in the 7th century BC, the heir apparent of the Egyptian kingdom is the progenitor of the Okpe people. And by 812 BC, there was a wave of migrations from the Near East, Sudan, and Egypt by different people or people of various cultures, including the Yoruba, the Okpe, and others. It wasn't quite clear whether the legendary Oduduwa of Ife, of Ile-Ife, is the heir apparent of the Egyptian king of the 7th century. However, Oduduwa gave birth to a son known as Obalufon. Obalufon grew strong and migrated from Ile-Ife to Igbotapa, a place called Igbotapa, near Ile-Ife, where he gave birth to a son and he named him Okpe. Okpe grew strong and migrated from Igbotapa and came to Benin with his subjects and his descendants. And some of his descendants stayed behind in the place called Okpe, in the present day Akoko Edo, in Edo State, Akoko Edo local government area in Edo State. Okpe, before his death in Benin, gave birth to a son called Igboze. Igboze grew and became a chief in the Benin Kingdom. His title as a chief was Onogi. And he grew strong and migrated further through the River Niger, east-southward, and got to a place he found suitable for settlement, and he established a kingdom there, in the place he called Eyutore, which is being occupied today by the Okpe Olomo people. And the Okpe Olomo people call the place a Kyoto nowadays. Igboze lived there with his wives, and he ruled as king in that kingdom. Because he came through the river and the tributaries around that area, and of course, we all know that anyone who lives around rivers and tributaries will always be traveling and engaging in various expeditions and activities in the rivers, in the creeks. And in one occasion, traveling through the river, his rowboat capsized, and his wife, the mother of his first son, died in that incident. 7 days after the burial of the wife, a mysterious live plant, live tree, grew up and grew astronomically to become a big tree. I remember some time ago we learned in one of our classes that I think in a certain part of Africa there is a species of bamboo tree that when it is planted, it takes about 10 years for it to germinate. For years, you won't see it germinating, but as soon as it germinates, within 7 days, it has grown taller than human beings and almost taller than other trees around it. That was like the case of this mysterious tree that grew on the grave of the wife of Igboze at Eyutore, now known as Ekyoto in the Okpe area. And Igboze saw it as a memorial. That plant became a memorial of the death of his wife. Therefore, he called the tree Okpe. The tree in English is known as Hetela physophora. The botanical name is Hetela physophora. But in Okpe, Igboze called it Okpe, meaning the mother of Okpe. And that is the reason why, till date, we refer to the wife of our traditional rulers as Okpe, the mother of Okpe kingdom, or the mother of Okpe people. Before the death of his first wife, Okpe, she gave birth to the first son of Igboze. And Igboze felt that he should name that his first son after his own father, Okpe. The Okpe who was born at Igbotagba was the father of Igboze. And when Igboze had his first son, he decided to name him after the father, Okpe. Okpe grew strong, and in the process of time, one Ogoro from the Ijaw area of Kiagbodo Kingdom came visiting Igboze. He became a friend to Igboze, and he was coming to visit. And Igboze already had a daughter that was grown and marriageable. Ogoro became interested, and the marriage contract was consummated. So Ogoro married the daughter of Igboze, and they had a son together whom he named Olomu. So Olomu became the grandson of Igboze. However, according to oral tradition, Olomu, the grandson of Igboze, was born much earlier than Okpe, his first son. So he grew, he was older than Okpe, and he had much influence in the land. And according to the Okpe tradition, which we have inherited from our fathers, now from Igboza himself, Igboza loved the grandson so much and pampered him, and when he grew up, he gave him so much powers. That was why he had a lot of influence, very great influence in the kingdom. And we could see that manifesting in the Okpe kingdom till date, that parents cherish, love, and pamper their grandchildren so much. As a result, when Igboze passed on, there became contention between Olomu, the grandson, and Okpe, the first son of Igboze, about who should inherit the throne. By right of primogeniture, Okpe, the first son, ought to be the king, ought to succeed his father. But because of the great influence of Olomu, the grandson, being older, stronger, and possibly with greater influence because of his age and the love and the powers that Igboze had already given him while he was alive, there was dissension which Okpe, because of his peaceful nature, decided to avoid. Instead of fracas, instead of fighting wars between siblings or relations, close relations at that, Okpe decided to move away from Eyutore. And so he moved to found another kingdom in which he called Okpe. Okpe is today the present Okpe area. He founded that kingdom and ruled over it, and by the reason of his departure from Eyutore, Olomu had the privilege of becoming king, succeeding Igboze. Okpe, ruling over his new kingdom, Okpe, which is now Okpe, he had 4 sons, which include Orwe, Ororo, Ereke, and Esezi. After a while, after his demise, Orwe, the first son, migrated further toward the place now called Ekwere, and he moved further across the river and came to a place where he found very edible plantain, ripe plantain, and he felt that that land must be very fertile, and he stayed there and named the place Okpe. That is the village that is close to Okpe here, which is called Okpe. From there, after a while, he moved further, migrated further, and found more edible fruits of plantain in this present location, which is called Okpe. And he moved further here and planted Ohimi, a live tree, to mark the founding of the new territory. And he named the place Orere Emokpe, the city of Okpe's children. And he went to bring his brothers, his 3 brothers, to come with him. And they all finally settled here in Okpe. And this was in 600 BC. He lived here with his brothers, and the time of migration from Okpe Olomu to Okpe to Okpe, and the rulership in Okpe for many centuries were undocumented. The time that we remember in oral history, which amounts to oral documentation that is available to us today, is the reign of Esezi I from 1450 to 1480. His reign was marked with greatness and development because he was a very strong king. He was very powerful. He was the reason why Okpe was rated very highly from that time to be a very big and a very strong kingdom, very powerful kingdom. Because even the European masters, the European explorers like L. Bowen, as recorded in Otite, who came to examine the kingdoms in this area, in this part of the country then, he found the Okpe to be the most powerful kingdom and well established, and the one that sets very profound example for other kingdoms in the area at that time. Seti the First was a very powerful king who gave orders to his subjects, and some of the orders he used to give them, he would send his messengers to beat Ozi, the big drum, and announce to people of different quarters to come. He used to give specific dates. The people of so quarters will come so day to prove their strength. He was using that to check the strength of his army from time to time. For people of the warriors of certain quarters to come and fell palm trees. And in the process of felling the palm trees, he would say, tie a rope at the top. First of all, before you attempt falling the palm tree, you climb to the top to tie a strong rope to it, leading downward. And then you cut. When the tree is about to fall, you don't allow the tree to fall from the cutting. When you know that the tree can fall by pulling it, then you will ask the warriors to pull the rope for it to fall towards their direction, and ask them to hold it and suspend it for it not to touch the ground. And in that process, so many people died. And people then, some of the subjects then felt that he was too high-handed, that it was too brutal. And so there was a plot against him which led to his assassination. And his assassination became like a war to the Okpe people, which made so many people to flee. You can't just kill a king and think that you will have peace. So people started fleeing to different directions, which also led to the expansion of the kingdom, because the people who fled from Okpe established many other communities around, and the kingdom then spread further. At that time, that also is an indication that the Okpe people hate autocracy, tyranny, oppression, brutality, and we can still find this as part of the trait of the Okpe man till today. Many Okpe people hate oppression and hate misrule. And some of us react even individually in our various places of abode and employment. Sometimes when we feel oppressed, we don't just keep quiet, we react to it because it's already in our blood. Sometimes we don't even know when we react, but because we abhor oppression very seriously, and we always react to it. There was a very long interregnum between this time between this time and the time that there was a successor to the throne in Okpe, because that king was assassinated in a very brutal manner, and in the process he pronounced a curse on the land. The people dug a pit in a position where they used to place his stool during council meetings, and he was persuaded to attend the meeting. Usually, Okpe rulers have powers, and they are backed up by the Almighty God Himself, and by the deities of the land, and by the ancestral spirits. Therefore, they are powerful. Before anything dangerous could happen to them, they usually have premonition. The king, Eseze I, actually had premonition about that, but he didn't know exactly what was going to happen. He resisted attending that particular meeting, council meeting, but he was persuaded by his closest chief to attend because of the importance of the agenda for the meeting. And he attended. By the time he entered the meeting hall and stepped on his throne, not knowing that a pit was under it, it was covered slightly before the stool was placed on it, he collapsed into the pit. And palm oil was already boiled around. They brought it and poured on him. And such would lead to slow death. It's not like firing AK-47 that would take away breath immediately. So he was able to struggle to pronounce a curse on the people, to say, is this the way you are killing your ruler? For this reason, you are no longer going to have a king. And that curse manifested in the Okpe kingdom, which led to that very long interregnum between 1480 and 1945, when we could have the stool reactivated with Eseze II installed. Eseze II was installed in 1945, and he reigned till 1966. Then we had Aurora I, who was installed in 1966, and he reigned till 1972 rather. 1972 to 2004, before we have the present Oroje, who was installed in 2004 till date. That's the brief history about the history and migration of the Okpe people. In terms of the administration in the land, traditional administration, we have the Udogun Okpe, which we refer to as the Okpe Supreme Council, headed by the Oroje of Okpe, and it comprises of the chiefs, the Ekakuru of Okpe Kingdom, and we have the secretary to the Udogun Okpe. And the Udogun, which is the Supreme Council, is the highest ruling body in Okpe, presided over by the Oroje himself. And after the Udogun Okpe, we have the Okpe Traditional Council. The Okpe Traditional Council is constituted by the mandate of the law of the state government of the 1970s, the traditional rulers and chieftaincy law. And that traditional council, Okpe Traditional Council, is also headed by the Oroje of Okpe, and with the chiefs as members, and the chairman of the two local government areas, Okpe and Saple, are ex-official members of the Okpe Traditional Council. After the Okpe Traditional Council, we have Okpe Atamweni, that is the Okpe Assembly. The Okpe Assembly is also presided over by the Oroje Okpe, and the chiefs, the Kakuros, and the Homarin. They are always members, and the district heads are also members, and representatives of the various communities, as well as promising sons and daughters of the kingdom who are invited. The Oroje himself told you earlier that administratively the kingdom is divided into districts, into 13 districts for effective administration. The 13 districts include Agalokwe, Amokwe, Aragba, Elume, Mereje 1, Mereje 2, Oha, Orerokwe, Ozwe, Sapele, Ugmore, Uboton, and Ugolo. And the Oroje appoints among the chiefs of the various districts as heads, as what we refer to in the kingdom as Ukeroroje. The head of each district is the Ukeroroje, the eye of the king in that area. So that's about the administration of the kingdom. Apart from these levels of administration at the center, where we have the Okpe, the Okpe Abamweni, Okpe Traditional Council and Okpe Abamweni. At the lower levels, we have the district now, the district level, where the district head oversees the affairs of his district on behalf of the Oroje and reports to the Oroje when necessary from time to time. And then outside that, we also have community leadership, where we have the Okpakwaman, the oldest man of the community, and the community council of elders, where we have the chairman, the secretary, and all of that, constituting a kind of executive for the day-to-day running of the communities, various communities. And then we also have the women groups. We have the Wemese, which comprises of the women who are by marriage members of the communities, the various communities. And we have the Boto, who are the doctors of the land, particularly those who are still possibly young, who are not yet married, and then divorcees who felt like coming home to resettle in their fatherland. They are always welcome. So this is how leadership is organized in Okpe Kingdom.
The land tenure system in the kingdom varies from place to place. But the first one is that the land belongs to families. For instance, in the forested area, sometimes the forests are very fearful forests. The man who is able to cultivate the forest and start planting there, that area belongs to him. And so his family will continue to farm there. But as the family is expanding, so many cultivation of the forested areas, then it might transfer from family to community. Or the whole town, the whole community may not be our family land, but the most important one is family land. The community one is just the new expression because of the extension of the family. The family is expanding, so it now becomes a community land. That's the land tenure system. Okay, in Okpe here, All the land within Okpe here are known as communal land, belong to the Okpe people, because our forefathers founded the land, and the families has expanded. So if you are an Okpe man, you are part owner of the land in Okpe, and the land is held in trust for the people by the Oroji. And the Oroji set up land management committee to manage the land for the Okpe people. But at the village level, if you want to go and if company wants to the land, they have to take up find out who the owner of the land, the community or the family land. Then you approach the people. Then they can sell the land for you, and then you can use it for the development.
Okay. We used to have A and PC. A T and B, African timber and plywood industry in Sapele. We also had Eternit. We had some flour mills in Sapele. We have a number of sawmills around Sapele, Okpe, Okpe. Some of these are still existing till today. And we have rubber factories also in these areas I've mentioned. We have some banks also in these communities, including Okpe. We have palm produce firms, at least maybe medium scale and small scale in many communities, including some villages where they now have mills, to produce, not the manual. Though the manual is also existing, the manual process of palm oil production is still existing. And then we have some oil companies. We have Seplat in Sapele. We have NEPA station, power station in Sapele, Nokorode. And we also have where we distill local gin. These are some industries we have in the land.
Some of the industries, do they have their raw materials?
Yeah, of course, yes. The rubber factories, for instance, have a lot of raw materials around the Okpe Kingdom, because so many rubber plantations, large rubber plantations exist in almost all the communities in Okpe. And when you talk about the oil palm produce industries, they are being fed with the natural oil palm, which is grown everywhere in Okpe land, as well as the ones cultivated by individuals. Yeah, of course, the sawmills are fed with timber from the land. We have a lot of timber produced in Okpe Kingdom. We have 205 communities in Okpe Kingdom.
Towns and villages.
Towns and villages.
The Okpe Kingdom, like any other communities and kingdoms in not only the south but southeast and southwest and the middle belt, have this issue of herdsmen. The herdsmen, when we were growing up, they used to move around. Not they used to go by the road to Ghana, but it's not the type of the herdsmen we see today that are very hostile and make it difficult for our women to go to the farm. Because at least in those days, the herdsmen, they know cash crops, cassava. People plant a lot of cassava. And the modern herdsmen, they just go to the cassava farm and destroy it. And it's always the conflict between the farmers and the herdsmen. And it's always a problem. It is also believed that the modern kidnapping, modern I say mainly because it is said that the kidnapping started from Niger Delta. So we sold, the Niger Delta sold kidnapping to the north, and they have perfected it so well. So the kidnapping is very rampant even here. But it's also good to note that even some of our people are also involved in kidnapping. But the herdsmen zone is the one that is very frightening to us.
In Okpe, we have classification for death rights. We have the class of the very elderly, Imani or Omani. That is somebody who was very, very old. Maybe from 90s, 100 and something. Then we have Omirewa. We have the category of Omirewa. Omirewa is maybe around 50 something and above to maybe 90 or so, or 60 something and above. Then we have Amoboba, or we have Ihunfe, who are youth between 20 and 50, or 40 something, yes, between 20 and 40, 49, classified that way. Then we have Imobumba. Imobumba are very, very tender young ones. And usually when a Mopoban pass on, there are usually no ceremonies. They are just buried like that because they are too young to be celebrated. It's too painful for anybody to say he wants to celebrate a tender person who passed away. But for the Momani, the elderly, most elderly category, they are well celebrated, and sometimes a lot of rights go with it, because some of them would have had great grandchildren, which we call a Sakbegodi, and some would call a Mama Sema and Rufomegbe. That is children in the 4th, 5th and 6th generations. So we usually celebrate them, and they are part of the celebration. They are properly dressed in ceremonial attire, traditional ceremonial attires, and brought in for the funeral. They have a special right to perform in the ceremony, in the funeral ceremony. And in some cases, in families or lineages where we celebrate old age and affluence, there is what we call Agben effigy, which is a kind of representation, a celebration in which the deceased is properly represented in an effigy. And it is also assumed that the spirit is invoked, not assumed, it's believed that the spirit of the deceased is invoked into the effigy, and the spirit comes to occupy the effigy and directs the effigy's movement. Those who bear it during the celebration, the spirit directs their movement. It's wherever the spirit wants them to go that they go. And a lot of times in the celebration, it's carried along the streets of the community, and he or she directs the movement of the bearers to visit mostly his family members and his friends around the community before it comes back to settle in the catafalque prepared for it at the arena, funeral arena. Then, as for death, which is regarded as abomination, maybe before I touch on that, there is a way our people classify death. There are deaths that we look at to be normal, to be part of destiny, that maybe one passes on at a very old age. It is seen as the person is destined to pass on at such a time. And so there is no cause for alarm over that, though it will still be painful to us no matter how old the person would be. But as far as the person passed on at a very ripe old age, it is seen as part of destiny. And again, death that is also regarded as peaceful is also seen as part of destiny, because it's the desire of every elder and the belief of every elder in Okpe that most times, if your heart is pure, your hands are clean, you are likely to pass on in a most peaceful manner, not in a horrible manner. Maybe, and that's the reason why most of our elders prefer that they pass on while asleep, with no indications of illness at all. When the time comes, he sleeps or she sleeps and passes on. And that is regarded as peaceful passage. But there are some deaths that our people regard as what we describe it in Okpe as waran, unexpected death. Is usually very painful and very touching. And those are deaths like those that occur in accident. Somebody was never sick but just had an accident and passes on. And sometimes not that the person is old enough, not that the person is maybe a young person, was never sick, suddenly has an attack, maybe a heart attack, and passes on. It's tragic and unexpected. It's very painful. We will classify such death as waran. And death that also occur as a result of attack, maybe assassination. It's not what anybody envisaged and not what anybody prepared for. But somebody is just attacked, or somebody is hit by a stray bullet and passes on. We refer to such death as waran, sudden death or unexpected death. But the abominable one is in different categories as well. It is considered abominable if anybody dies in the bush. It is believed in Okpe that one who has a pure heart and clean hands would never die in the bush, no matter the circumstance, no matter the incident. Even if one is in the bush and is hit by a stray bullet, he will still struggle to get home, to get to the town, to enter a community before he breathes the last. If one falls from the top of palm tree in the process of harvesting it, maybe the rope cut or something happened and the person falls down from the top of the tree. It is believed that if the person's heart is pure, his hands are clean, he would not die. He will still struggle to enter the community before he passes on. But if the person eventually dies in the bush, it is regarded as a taboo, as an abomination, and therefore the person is buried in the bush. The person is not buried in the town or in the house, but in the bush. Those days, leprosy also constituted an abominable death. If somebody is leprotic and dies as a result, could not survive it, it is regarded as an abomination, and such a person is interred in the bush, in a nearby bush, and not buried in the town or in the community. For someone who dies in the river, yes, the person is buried. The person who drowns and dies in the river is buried by the river bank, not necessarily in the bush, but by the river bank. And for a woman who is pregnant and dies in the process of giving birth, it's also considered to be abominable. So the person is buried also in the nearby bush, not in town. Yes, then another one will be one who has committed abominable acts through witchcraft and some other terrible means, maybe sorcery means, and the person confessed it before death, because you cannot know who has witchcraft and who has committed abominable things through witchcraft and sorcery means unless the person confesses it. There are occasions where some people have refractory diseases inflicted on them by deities and ancestral spirits as a result of the evils that they have done using those witchcraft and sorcery powers. And as a result, those ailments do not yield to treatment. And that condition forces them to confess the evil deeds. And after the confession, they pass on. Because they have confessed that they committed those abominable deeds, they are not buried in towns or in the community. We also mentioned suicide, classified as abominable. As I told you earlier, the people and their language are named after their progenitor, Okpe. The language has been in existence for a very long time. As we told you, we believe that this language and the people existed before the birth of Christ. It was not a language that metamorphosed from another like Urobo. The Urobo thing we are talking about, or the Urobo concept, so many people do not understand that Urobo is a socio-political grouping of certain peoples who live in a geographical area together for easy administration during the colonial era. That was a socio-political grouping that brought not even just the Okpe and the other Urobo people together. It brought the Okpe, the Agbaro, the Ebron, the Isoko, and the Ubiye, as well as even the Isekiri together, long before the Isekiris seceded. The Isekiris were part of the grouping earlier, but they seceded, and the Isoko seceded. And according to Otite, it was on October 1st, 1931, that these people came together to agree to say, let us refer to ourselves as Urobo. Because when the grouping was made, the colonial masters were calling them Sobo. How that originated, we do not know. But if you have read Hubbard and Bradbury, they usually say that Sobo is not the name of any ethnic group, that it was just a coinage to refer to peoples of different ethnic backgrounds that have been brought together because they share similar customs and they live in a common geographical location.
to talk about something very unique. There's a special dance in Okpe. That dance, Ivri dance, is only peculiar to Okpe. And it is danced during burial ceremony of elderly people. And I have never seen it anywhere in Uruguay. And I also believe that the Ema dance is peculiar to Okpe, but so many other tribes of the Delta Central, Delta South are also doing Ema, but it was regularly an Okpe dance. And it is danced during ceremonies, chieftaincy ceremonies. It's a royal dance. Ema dance is a royal dance. And when they are dancing Ema, you see, you put it yourself, you are bringing weight to yourself. No? Bringing weight to yourself. Then when you are dancing Ivri, you remove poverty, you remove sadness from yourself. You do your hands like that. You remove poverty from your life. You remove sadness from your life. So those are the two issues. It's the way we will greet our king, Umogum. But other people are also copying it, you know. But in Delta State, for instance, okay, if you don't say Delta State, Central. When you say Umogu, you are saying, you see, Oroge is the name of our king, Oroge. But the way they greet Oroge is Umogu. So when you know anywhere you say Umogu, they know the king, Oroge Okpe is there. The Oroge of Okpe is there. It's peculiar to Okpe, but the Okpe language is peculiar. You see, the typical Okpe man in the village, you will not hear when you speak Urugu, they will not understand. Like my daughter, you can understand Okpe, when you speak Urugu, she don't understand. But those of us who grew up here and maybe we train our father, move around, we can understand Urugu. But Urugu people do not understand us. When we talk, they don't understand us. And the typical people do not understand Urugu. And like we said, the Okpes in Okpe do have similarity with their language. When we say Ohu, they also say Ohu. Eva, they say Eva. So, you see, I'm still going to send people to go and do that research. Where is the link between the Okpe in Akokedo and Okpe in Delta Central here? And in fact, when you see most ancient, when they speak and put your, you know, we'll be hearing what they say. Mikobanare, Maminare, Sabi. They are some pockets like that. So our own, the dialect is peculiar. So we can say one people, one language, and one king.
Tourism potentials. Okpe Kingdom has quite a lot of tourism potential that can attract tourists into this our territory. One of them is our Daniel Okpe Cultural Festival. If you come here when the coronation's anniversary ceremonies, you see Okpe culture in display as different from other neighboring cultures around us. We also have our masquerades, different kinds of masquerades. We have our occupational dances and cultural dances, means of entertainment. They are quite different. The way we even do our own Igbima dance is also different. They also have our cuisines. One very peculiar cuisine in Okpe land is Igbagba. It's different from the way they would prepare it in Okpe. It's different from other cultures. Though some of them they have something they call a ruboto, but our own Igbagba is different. And then we also prepare our ukodo. It's also different from the way others prepare it. Then we have our mangrove swamps. We have some of the best clay in this country. So this is our tourism potential that people can come. We have our waterways. If you go to the Ethiop River, it's one of the clearest water around this area. And our mangrove swamps we use to produce salt, native salt from the mangrove swamps. So these are the areas that tourists can come. We have very beautiful vegetation, evergreen. vegetation. And then our waterways are also clear and safe. There are no pirates on our waterways that can, tourists who want to have a natural flow, a natural feel of the environment, the Niger Delta environment, can come here. We live in a territory, landmark that straddle the deep swamp and the upland. So we are neither too much deep swamp, we are not also too much into the upland. So this gives us a kind of geographical feel, and you have very comfortable and convenient weather throughout the year. Even during the peak of the Harmattan, our weather is not so harsh. Sometimes in the Harmattan you can find rain. So you see that our environment is very conducive for tourists to come.
Features of the Okpe people. I think in the whole of Delta State, there's hardly any king that is that has a kingdom that spreads over 2 local government areas. And the Okpe kingdom, the Okpe people, spread over 2 local government areas. Indeed, we have some part of our kingdom in Ichob East and also in Urie. Okpe people are there. And just as you have some people in Edo State and so on. So I think that is very unique of us too. I think when we talk about this tourism, I think we go to entertainment. We have very many kinds of music that that we can actually harp on in terms of tourism. In fact, we have some traveling, if you like, call them theaters or performances. We have the Bidaka dance troupe. I'm sure you must have heard of Bidaka dance troupe. You have the Okpe dance troupe. These are not just music in just communities, no. They are commercialized. They move from one place to the other to do their performances. We have this but then before the Okpe disco kind of music that you find in different places, you can invite them, you can employ their services anytime you need their performances. These are tourism potentials in Okpe Kingdom. And I think you can still even get more than that.
So we have a lot of festivals that have different features. Apart from the Kenike, we have the Orime festival that features different masquerades in Merenje. We also have the one in Iriama, Kutita festival in Iriama. We have the Ekdikrode Youth Annual Festival, which features different masquerades that represent different deities that inhabit the waters, that also manifest in various forms, because the Okpe people believe that certain deities inhabit the waters and they also exhibit some control over some of the activities and affairs of men. And we have the Ekba Festival of Ikerisan, and all these are different festivals that feature various kinds of manifestation of spirit powers or deities, or what we refer to generally as spirit manifest.
We have this boat regatta in Iriama. Even that's up there too.
Adultery in Okpe Kingdom is a taboo. Once a woman is married, proper married, not that you are staying cohabiting because you have children, but it's not a wife. Not a wife. It's your girlfriend. So when you marry a woman, in your house. If the woman goes to have sex outside, it's adultery. But the man does not commit adultery. Because you are allowed to marry as many wives as possible. So adultery itself is an abomination, it's a taboo. In natural sense, it is believed that if a woman commits adultery and she does not confess to the husband, the day she goes to deliver a child, she cannot deliver unless she confesses. The child will never come to be delivered unless the woman confesses. Even the adultery, not only because through sex, but talking to the woman in a way that is to say that you want to have sex with her, not really penetrating, is adultery. If you don't confess, or holding her hand is adultery. If you don't confess.
Touching her first.
So, and for that, you demand because you pay damages to the husband. You pay damages. Then you talk about stealing. So what do you call it? Stealing is every society is a taboo. Anybody who steals, you don't want to get the person closer to you. Without condone stealing, without condoning. So if you are a thief, nobody wants to be associated with you. In short, if a thief comes to your house, you are not very comfortable. You want to start watching him if you come to the camp. So those things are. You talk about adoption. Yes, adoption. People will just carry your daughter away, and so well, if you carry the girl away without paying that price, you are your own. If anything happens, you cannot come and talk to the parent that so happened to your daughter. In natural sense, we have seen cases when you elope with the girl, and then something happens, God forbid, the girl dies. You come and talk to the parent, who won't listen to you. Because they don't even know you as an in-law. And because an in-law performs a lot of rites during burial. Some in-law perform a lot of rites during burial. That is why during buy price, when you pay the money, they will return some money back to you, telling you that you have not finished paying. You're going to pay throughout your lifetime. Anything that happens in the family, they will send for you. And during the burial of your father or mother-in-law, there are certain rights you are supposed to perform. But if your wife, you don't marry your wife, you don't pay dowry, you cannot come. You are like any other visitor. Like any other visitor. The other taboos in Okpe, like for instance, it is forbidden in Okpe for you to have sex with a woman under her period. You cannot have sex with her. It's a taboo. Or for you to have sex in the bush, it's a taboo. The other ones, I can't remember, there are so many taboos like that.
Crossing a woman's leg.
Okay, that is adultery, adultery. But we are talking about taboo.
Sex with a relative, close
Okay, sex with a close relationship is a taboo. So there are so many taboos like that in Okpe.
The Okpe Union is the most powerful and most recognized socio-cultural group in Okpe. And it has branches around the world, not only in Nigeria. There are branches in different states of the country. There are branches in different cities, and there are branches in other parts of the world, like the US and the UK.
The Okpe Union was founded in the 30s. 1930s. The Okpe Union and the Uganda Union in Cross River, they are the oldest union in Nigeria. The Okpe Union and the one union in Cross River. The Bibio, the Akwa Ibom, the Bibio. They are the oldest union in Nigeria. Before I talk about Hadeze, Alewa, Panifere, these are the two oldest unions in this country. People recollect when Professor Dawebo was talking about the struggle for the school in Okpe alone, on the demise of the bosom, that alone will lead to serious conflict because of the peaceful disposition of the Okpe people. The rightful owner of the throne, which is Okpe. So, okay, you want? Okay, I'm leaving. So we are peaceful people. We want peace. In short, when Shell was operating in Saple, not taken over by Seplat, Saple Okpe community used to win the most peaceful community in the whole of the area where Shell was operating. They used to win it. We are peaceful people. But sometimes people take us for granted because we are peaceful people. Oil companies, for instance, because we don't agitate, we don't blow their pipes, we don't stop their production. And what is due to us, to the community, they don't limit us. Because we don't agitate, we don't demonstrate. So they take advantage of that. And because the way the kingdom is organized, I can keep a tab of what is happening. And our people have a lot of respect for the throne. When they say, although she doesn't want it this way, they will listen. They will listen. Though there can be some deviant. There are some deviant. But generally, the people have a lot of respect for the throne. And because I believe that we cannot get development without peace, so we preach peace every time. And we make choose, you know, in those days, the king had both executive, legislative, and judicial power. All those things have been taken over by government. So what we have now is just the citoyen. So even if I want to maintain peace, the only way I can make sure there's peace in my community is to liaise with the security agencies and have that good rapport with them. They help me to maintain peace. But generally, we are peaceful people, and my people love peace. Thank you very much.